Welcome to yet another conversation with yet another business leader who has her own views of how enterprise tomorrow looks like and how it's going to be vastly different and enthusing than what you see around today. So today we have Trisha Pathak on our show, and I would request Trisha to give an introduction of herself than me doing the honors. Trisha?
Thank you so much, Arun, and what an absolute pleasure to be having this conversation with you. So maybe just a quick 2 cents about myself. Hi, I'm Trisha Pathak. I'm the Chief Workforce Officer of Motul Asia-Pacific. So I look after all of our 6 entities in 20 countries across Asia-Pacific. Now, some people ask me, why workforce? Why not HR officer, which is a more commonly known title. And we had a big debate with the board, and I'm a true believer that humans are not resources. I think they're really one of our most important assets that we have. And as a management consultant previously in the Big Four, and as a current TMI Wharton Global Fellow, we constantly talk about the P&L, and we constantly talk about how do you drive the business forward. How do we make sure we achieve our targets and our numbers and reduce the SG&A? But we need to really go back to our most important engine room, which is our people, which is making sure that they find a sense of purpose in what they do. Because once you get your people right, the customer, the volume, the targets, I feel they all manage themselves out. So thank you very much for having me. Extremely excited.
Wonderful, right? I really like that perspective, and I wouldn't expect anything less. Now, having said that, the importance of purpose and the conversation about having a sense of purpose or instilling a sense of purpose among our people has
Yeah.
been on the rise, especially in the last decade, right? Now, so sometimes when we talk about purpose, purpose for the employee and the purpose for the
Hmm.
organization, sometimes, if not most of the times, are two different things, right? So now that
Sure.
is where I have my first question. How do you think, or how do you see these two getting aligned, and the role of that in this enterprise of tomorrow that we are all marching towards?
Hmm. No, I think that's a very important question. Uh, and let me maybe break it down into like you said, in the last decade we've been talking about this idea of purpose. As much as organizations have been saying people come first, we are very employee centric. If you look at a lot of strategic houses, which almost every company has these days, people are usually the fourth or fifth pillar. It starts off with, oh, I want to diversify the business, and then it goes into, oh, I want to grow it in this area. Then it goes into, oh, operations have to be extremely optimized, and then, oh, technology very important, and then, oh, by the way, our people are the engine room. I think just psychologically, um, for people, the first question, and the basics of change management, they ask, "What's in it for me?" For organizations, the first questions that they've been asking is, "How do I grow? How do I make sure my shareholders are happy? How do I make sure my customers are happy? How do I make sure I don't spend a lot of money doing that? And then can we make sure the people are also happy?" People
Right.
should not be a by the way. People, if an organization is really keen on talking about the enterprise of tomorrow, needs to keep that in mind, that for people they come first. For organizations, even though we can say it and put it on the cards, people also need to start to come first. So for me, I think just psychologically changing the way we have the narrative is extremely important, even in today's day and age. And Arun, you know this quite well, and you worked with organizations all around. We always think about, oh, the finance team needs to have this and this and this. You need someone doing FP&A. You need someone who is a finance controller. You need someone who's going to help with the accounting. With HR, then we say, oh, we've got one HR person who should be able to do everything. Of course, this is changing in organizations slowly, but I think organizations really need to realize that at the end of the day, one, you need to invest in your people operations team, right? Extremely importantly. And that not just invest in them, the custodian of your people have to be all of your managers. One person cannot change the culture of an organization. One person cannot make an organization employee centric. It has to be, you've got to cascade that sense of purpose, that sense of what are we doing, all the way down to your managers who need to live it and breathe it if you want any change in culture. So if we're talking about aligning what organizations want and aligning what people want, it's equally important to know what exactly is it that people want. And it isn't always, it isn't always money. If an organization's most important thing is, oh, we're going to grow 30% year on year, or we're going to cut costs over here, is that exactly what your people want? No. And it's firstly, not many organizations are aligning their growth as much as, so if I'm growing 30% as an employee, are you increasing my salary 15%? Are you increasing it 20%? So the correlation between business performance has not been aligned to the goals that you're setting or the purpose that you're setting for your employees. Secondly, it's a two-way thing. What do employees want? They want, for example, a sense of purpose. We spend time talking about this vision. Oh, in 5 years, we're going to be, for example, one of the most innovative companies because we're putting in all of this money, all of this, we're putting in all of this money, all of this investment there. People cannot always think in terms of 5-year plans. People want to go for that investment. How are you changing my life? Can I go back earlier to meet my kids? Can I now, have to work less because something has been automated and you've made my life simpler? So I feel because there has been a little bit of that mismatch as to what organizations have valued, not always taking into account what people truly value. Hence, it still is going to take some level of alignment and some level of calibration. It's not to go one way or the other. You can't completely be people centric. I mean, it's not that we increase productivity by so much and that will have a direct impact on the business results. No, I'm also not saying the happiest employees make the most money. Not always. But I do feel that we need to go and we need to calibrate between what the two of them want so that you can truly function much better together.
Got it. So quite a few perspectives, right? And in fact, below the perspectives, quite a few underpinnings of what the enterprise of tomorrow should actually look like, right? Now, so given all this, right, on one side there is a movement of, and I would call it as a cognitive alignment of what organizations tomorrow should be, and how do we drive that? How do we align that with the sense of purpose? Now, to make that happen in an organization which has thousands and thousands of employees spread across the world, what do you think is the role of technology?
I think objectivity and transparency are two very important things to make that happen. And that's where, I feel data and technology play a very important role. Um, if we want to start to bridge that gap, and if we want to get people talking about the same thing, what does data at the end of the day give you? It gives you some level of transparency and it gives you a little bit of that sense of comfort that it's not, my boss or all the board members who are making a decision that I have no, overview about. So I think data starts to give you some level of comfort, of objectivity and transparency in the decisions that are being made. It allows the managers to have a conversation which is around the fact that, listen, this is not me thinking that, this is what I can show you based on your performance and based on the business performance, what is happening. That I feel is an important first step in removing a lot of the subjectivity out of it. Look, it will always happen. We don't live in a world where data is perfect and, this happened and that's what not everything is cause and effect. But I do feel that if we have a much more data-driven approach into how we're managing performance, into how we're setting objectives, it will allow for a conversation which is much more fruitful between the managers and the employees. And secondly, it will allow you to pivot much quicker if need be in order for the employees to change their behavior and thereby for companies to achieve what they really wanted. You don't wait for, we have, in organizations, every month, the CEO, the CFO get together, the head of sales get together to go, what is the target? What have we achieved? What have we not achieved, and why? We pivot our business decision making on all of these very data driven inputs. However, performance management happens once, maybe twice a year. How is it that we are not analyzing this when we do have this information? Why are we not leveraging on the business outcomes on a monthly basis to also drive the performance of someone? If I'm, for example, if I'm a finance executive or a marketing trade promotion executive, I don't have visibility all the time onto the business performance. All I hear is twice a year, oh, sorry, you didn't hit your KPIs, and this is the overall business results and you didn't hit your KPIs. However, if we could use the same data that we've been using to drive business performance, to be able to drive people performance in a much more regulated, in a much more objective, transparent manner, I think that's when we're going to see closer alignment between the two.
Understood. So what stood out from what I heard was the theme that if I were to digest this and distill it as a regular performance consciousness, right, for individuals, team leaders, and the organization across, right, which otherwise is done only doing a board review time. If you can make that into a continuous process, a transparent process, using technology, so that is where the alignment of purpose will also happen. Good.
Absolutely.
I have one last question before we wind up. So we talked about purpose, we talked about technology, we talked about performance consciousness, and I think I'm repeating the mistake of what you pointed out in the beginning, saying that you talk about people in the end, right? So, last but not least, what do you think is the role of talent management, or how do you think talent management needs to evolve in building the perfect enterprise of tomorrow?
That's the $1 billion question, Arun. I
Right. So
think,
you can, I'm sure it's a very open-ended question. There are so many perspectives there,
yeah,
but if you look for a distillation or a headlines of that, right, how that needs to change, what would that be?
for sure. I think one of something that used to happen, um, I would say about a decade ago in the industry, was talent management was who are your high potential and who are your best performers. We used to say, oh, this 5%, this is our talent. Now you're going to give them the best training. You're going to make sure we have enough succession plan for them. We're going to make sure we put them in the right position. What I think started to happen when you did that was you alienated the rest of the organization. An organization really doesn't work on 5-7% of the workforce. It works on really the entire workforce. The first step is I reckon, for organizations to define talent in a much more segmented way, right? Yes, you could have some of the people who might be the best potential managing directors. Yes, you might have some people who are up there as the next CMOs. But it's not just that. You're going to need this critical position. There is managers who are really the true drivers, of a successful organization. So constantly looking at talent with that 5-7% and saying this talent will go up, vertically, isn't that? How do we have better horizontal growth? How do we segment the talent to say these are the managers of the future? These are going to be our innovators of the future. These are potentially our business leaders of the future. I think that segmentation and a much more detailed segmentation of talent is a first step in getting there. We do that, and Arun, you're a CMO. You do that for your customers. Why not do it for your talent? And if we could really start to be much more intricate and much more strategic about that segmentation, I think that's the first step in getting there. The second one, and it's crazy, and this is open-ended, so it might not always be the most popular opinion, but You remember, Arun, one of the things that we were taught when we were growing up was, oh, make sure before you get into a job, do a lot of internships. You know, do a lot of internships and make sure that you've got experience in, for example, PR and media buying and newspaper writing, and then you can select what's the type of job you want. But you have all these different ideas. Then you get into a job, you move on. Organizations also then took that concept further by setting up traineeship programs to say, okay, in the first 2 years, you try all of this, and then you decide what you want. What we've seen, for the last 5-7 years is very big attrition, especially amongst the millennials. Because they go, I'm sorry, I've done this for 2 years. What's next for me? My boss is not leaving for the next 7 years. My boss is in, his mid-30s, early 40s. He's not going to leave. What's next for me? And what they would either do is, if there's no opportunity in their company, they would leave. What I think could be one of the ideas that we do follow in terms of talent management is for groups of companies to get together, and instead of, for example, if you look at it right now, certain companies need more talent right now because the demand is really high. Right? Technology companies, even your food delivery companies, they really need a higher influx of talent. Certain in transport, hospitality, they do have talented people, but unfortunately, there aren't enough roles for them. I feel if groups of companies could get together and be a little bit more open on sharing their talent, so that the talent doesn't have to leave the organization with a new job in order to be able to, get to the next level or get his next jump, but gain that, sort of like consulting, gain that expertise somewhere else and bring that expertise back into the organization. I think we would, as a whole, as a talent market, be able to up our level of talent development, up our level of identification and grooming of talent much more significantly. And I also do think it would have a little bit of an answer to the attrition problem for the millennials. So for me, two-pronged. Talent segmentation, and I think let's be a little bit more open on how we as a group of companies can share talent much better. We talk about seamless talent across borders. Why not look at that across organizations as well? So I'm not sure if that's the answer, but those are my 2 cents.
That's quite a interesting perspective, right? Sounds a little utopian, though, right? But I am a strong believer that one beauty of capital, right, is that it's
Absolutely.
right behavior as long as there is a bottom line impact. And the good part is that there's a lot of thinking on how do I ensure that my current talent is contributing more, and that contribution comes by not just me empowering, but is there an external empowerment possible? But that external empowerment, if it goes to even competitors, so it's a very interesting utopia which we should all be aspiring towards. That's very interesting.
It is. But when going back to our initial discussion on purpose, if you really love something, let it go. If you really have faith in your talent and they know that you have that level of trust, and you're helping them build their impact and their relevance in the marketplace, I do believe they will come back. You're right, utopian, but I thought that's what it's the enterprise of the future, not of today.
Good. So Trisha, I'm sure we can talk on and on, right? And which we will definitely do as always, right? And for the time being, thanks a lot for your perspectives, right? And
Anytime.
and I can see that you are as excited as us about the evolution of enterprise tomorrow. And let's all be together in ensuring that tomorrow is much, much better than the tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Arun.